International crime lord who owns casinos and hotels sees a waitress being humiliated by a customer and offers her a life of luxury. Hey there, I'm Alex, your guide through today's extraordinary tale on Hearts of Crime. What you're about to witness is a story of passion and danger that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Trust me, when I say the twist at the end will leave you absolutely speechless. If you enjoy these forbidden love stories, please hit that like button and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily uploads of these incredible stories. Stay with me until the very end. I promise the conclusion will shock you in ways you can't imagine. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. Have a wonderful day, and may God bless you and your family. The crystal glasses clinked as servers navigated through the Golden Scepter Casino's high-end restaurant. Chandeliers cast a warm glow over marble floors and velvet-draped walls. At table 7, Jack Castellano observed the room with practiced detachment. From his private corner, he could see everything: the dealers making their rounds, the security personnel stationed at strategic points, and the wealthy patrons losing fortunes with practiced smiles. Jack adjusted his custom Italian suit and checked his watch, a timepiece worth more than what most people earned in years. His empire stretched across continents, a network of casinos, hotels, and businesses that generated wealth beyond imagination. The official record showed a brilliant entrepreneur. The unofficial ones told a different story of calculated risks, dangerous alliances, and rivals who mysteriously disappeared. His associates sat around him discussing their latest acquisition, a struggling hotel chain that would soon join the Castellano group. Jack barely listened. After so many years in this world, few things truly captured his attention anymore. That changed when he heard the commotion. "You stupid woman, look what you've done." The voice cut through the ambient noise, drawing eyes to a table near the center of the restaurant. A red-faced man in an expensive but ill-fitting suit was standing, his white shirt stained with red wine. Beside him, a waitress with auburn hair had stepped back, her face pale. "I'm so sorry, sir. It was an accident." "An accident? You've ruined my shirt. Do you have any idea how much this costs?" The manager hurried over, profuse apologies spilling from his lips. The waitress stood frozen, clutching her empty tray like a shield. Jack leaned forward slightly. There was something about her, a quiet dignity even as the man continued his tirade. Most of the other diners had returned to their meals, such scenes hardly uncommon among the entitled wealthy who frequented his establishments. "Brianna, go to the back immediately," the manager hissed at the waitress. As she turned to leave, the angry patron grabbed her wrist. "I'm not finished with you yet. I want compensation." Jack saw the flash of fear in her eyes, quickly replaced by something harder. She pulled her arm away with surprising strength. "Please don't touch me, sir." The man's face turned darker. "Do you know who I am? I could have you fired with one phone call." Jack had seen enough. He nodded to Raymond, his head of security, who immediately approached the table. "Is there a problem here?" Raymond asked, his voice quiet but carrying an unmistakable authority. The man turned his anger toward the new arrival. "Yes, there's a problem. This incompetent waitress works for me," Jack said, now standing beside Raymond. The restaurant fell silent. Everyone knew who Jack Castellano was and what his presence meant. The angry patron paled, recognition dawning on his face. "Mr. Castellano, I didn't realize. This establishment is yours. Everything in this building is mine," Jack replied coolly. "And I don't appreciate how you're treating my staff." He turned to the waitress, Brianna. The manager had called her. Up close, he noticed her eyes, a striking shade of green that reminded him of the emeralds his mother once wore. Despite the situation, she met his gaze directly. "Are you all right?" Jack asked. "Yes, thank you, sir." Her voice was steady, though he detected a slight tremor. Jack turned back to the man. "Your dinner tonight is on the house, including a replacement shirt from our boutique, and tomorrow you'll receive a call from my office about your membership status." The threat was clear. The man nodded quickly, mumbling apologies as he sank back into his chair. Jack addressed the manager next. "Brianna will take her break now. Have her meet me in my private lounge when she's ready." The manager nodded frantically. Of course, Mr. Castellano. 20 minutes later, Brianna entered the private lounge located behind the casino floor. The room was tastefully furnished with leather sofas, a fully stocked bar and windows overlooking the city skyline. Please, sit. Jack gestured to a chair across from him. Would you like something to drink? No, thank you. She remained standing, her hands clasped in front of her. Her uniform had been straightened, but she still looked shaken. I appreciate your intervention, Mr. Castellano, but if you're going to fire me, I'd prefer you just do it quickly. Jack raised an eyebrow. Fire you? Why would I do that? Because the customer is always right, especially when they're wealthy enough to buy half the casino. A small smile tugged at Jack's lips. Not in my establishments. That man is a minor investment banker who loses more than he wins and treats my staff poorly. I've been looking for a reason to revoke his membership. Relief flickered across her face, followed by confusion. Then why am I here? Jack studied her for a moment. There was something compelling about her, an intelligence and resilience that contrasted with her surroundings. How long have you worked here, Brianna? Almost 2 years. And before that, she hesitated. I was in college, literature major. Then family circumstances changed and I needed full-time work. Jack nodded, piecing together the story she wasn't telling. He'd seen it countless times, dreams deferred by necessity. So I have a proposition for you, he said, deciding on impulse. I need a personal assistant, someone intelligent, observant, and not easily intimidated. The position includes a significantly higher salary, private accommodations in my hotel, and travel opportunities. You'd be managing my schedule, handling correspondence, and accompanying me to business functions. Brianna's eyes widened. You're offering me a job. You don't even know me. I know enough, Jack replied. I recognize potential. And I saw how you handled yourself down there, with dignity, despite provocation. She looked skeptical. What's the catch? No catch, just loyalty and discretion. You'll see and hear things in my inner circle that must remain confidential. Brianna's gaze sharpened. Things like what you really do besides running casinos and hotels. Jack's expression remained impassive, but he was impressed by her directness. My business interests are diverse and complex. Not all of them are discussed in public. You mean the rumors are true, she said quietly, about where your money really comes from. He didn't confirm or deny it. Everyone in this city lives with certain understandings. The question is whether you can do the same. Brianna looked out at the glittering city below. For a moment, Jack thought she would refuse. Then she turned back to him. When would I start? Immediately. Tonight, if possible. He slid a key card across the table. This will give you access to the executive floor. Suite 3001 has been prepared. Your belongings can be collected tomorrow. She picked up the card, examining it. This is happening very fast. That's how opportunities work, Brianna. They appear suddenly and disappear just as quickly if not seized. She met his eyes again, and Jack felt an unexpected current between them, something beyond the usual deference people showed him. I accept, she said finally, but I have one condition. Jack raised an eyebrow, amused by her boldness. And what would that be? If I ever feel uncomfortable with what I'm being asked to do, morally uncomfortable, I can walk away. No consequences. He studied her for a long moment. Agreed. He extended his hand, and she shook it firmly. Neither of them could have known then how this moment would change everything, or the dangerous path they had just started down together. The morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Suite 3001. Brianna stood at the glass, gazing at the city sprawled below her. The suite was larger than her entire apartment, furnished with elegant pieces that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Former salary, she reminded herself. Her phone buzzed with a message, meeting in 10 minutes. Executive floor, conference room A. Nathaniel. Nathaniel was Jack's chief of staff, a serious man with wire-rimmed glasses who had spent the previous evening briefing her on her duties. He'd provided her with a new wardrobe, a smartphone with secure communications, and a tablet containing Jack's meticulously organized schedule. Brianna smoothed down her new silk blouse and tailored skirt. The woman in the mirror barely resembled the waitress from the night before. She gathered her notes and headed for the elevator. The conference room was already filled with Jack's inner circle when she arrived. Conversations halted as she entered, curious eyes evaluating the newcomer. Jack sat at the head of the table, reviewing documents. He glanced up, acknowledging her with a slight nod. "Brianna, take the seat to my left," he said. "You'll need to record the key points of today's discussion." She slid into the chair, keenly aware of the scrutiny from others around the table. Raymond, the security chief, gave her a neutral nod. A sleek woman in her 40s studied her with unconcealed curiosity. The others remained expressionless, professional masks firmly in place. "Let's begin," Jack said, immediately drawing everyone's attention. The Macau situation first. What followed was a crash course in Jack Castellano's empire. They discussed casino operations, hotel acquisitions, and shipping contracts across multiple continents. While the conversation remained technically legal, Brianna caught the subtle undertones, the vague references to alternative revenue streams and special handling that hinted at the darker side of his businesses. Jack moved through the meeting with commanding efficiency, making decisions worth millions without hesitation. Brianna took notes diligently, impressed despite herself by his strategic mind. "One final matter," said the sleek woman, whom Brianna had learned was Victoria, Jack's legal counsel. "The Santos issue." The room tensed slightly. Jack's expression hardened. "What's the latest?" he asked. "He's making noise about the Las Vegas deal. Claims you violated your agreement by moving into his territory." Jack drummed his fingers on the table. "Remind Mr. Santos that the agreement was for traditional operations only. The casino resort was never part of our arrangement." Victoria nodded. "He's requested a meeting." "Arrange it. Next week. Neutral location." "Is that wise?" Raymond asked. "After what happened last time, it's necessary." Jack cut him off. "We can't afford a conflict right now, not with the Rivera merger pending." The meeting concluded shortly after. As the others filed out, Jack gestured for Brianna to remain. "First impressions?" he asked once they were alone. She considered her words carefully. "You run a tight ship. Everyone knows their role." "And the subtext?" Brianna met his gaze. "You're having territorial disputes with someone named Santos, who clearly isn't just a business competitor. And there are aspects of your operation that deliberately weren't mentioned in my presence." A hint of a smile touched his lips. "Observant. That's good." He stood and walked to the window. "Santos is a problem that needs careful handling. You'll be involved in arranging the meeting, but you won't attend, not yet." "Is he dangerous?" Jack turned to face her. "Everyone in my world is dangerous, Brianna, including me. Remember that." The following days fell into a rhythm. Brianna shadowed Jack from morning until evening, managing his communications, arranging meetings, and gradually learning the complex web of his businesses. The legitimate side of his empire was impressive enough. Luxury hotels and casinos across 4 continents, real estate holdings, investment portfolios. The other side remained largely in shadow, though she caught glimpses, hushed phone calls, coded messages, meetings with hard-faced men who didn't seem like typical business associates. Jack never explicitly confirmed her suspicions, maintaining the thin veneer of legitimacy. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings, they sat in his private office reviewing the next day's schedule. Jack had loosened his tie, and Brianna had kicked off her heels beneath the desk, small signs of the growing comfort between them. "Cancel my dinner with the Japanese investors tomorrow," Jack said, rubbing his temples. "Reschedule for next week." "They won't be happy," Brianna noted, making the change in his calendar. "Their CEO flew in specifically to meet you. Send them a case of the 82 Bordeaux from my private collection with my apologies. Something more important has come up." She looked up, curious. "The Santos situation," Jack nodded. "His people reached out. We're moving up the meeting." Brianna had learned not to press for details on such matters, but Jack surprised her by continuing. "Santos and I have history. We started in the business around the same time, competed for the same territories. Over the years, we developed an understanding. Certain lines neither of us would cross. Recently, he believes I've broken that arrangement. Have you?" Jack's eyes met hers, unreadable. Not intentionally, but perception matters in our world as much as reality. And if you can't convince him, then things will become complicated. He closed the file on his desk. Enough work for tonight. Have you had dinner? The question caught her off guard. No, I was planning to order room service later. Join me instead. There's a place on the waterfront I think you'll enjoy. Brianna hesitated. In the weeks she'd worked for him, their relationship had remained strictly professional. This felt like crossing a line. Is that an order or an invitation? She asked. Jack smiled, a rare, genuine expression that transformed his face. Definitely an invitation. The restaurant was an unassuming building with no sign, just a blue door and a discreet security camera. Inside, however, was an intimate space with only a handful of tables, each separated to ensure privacy. The owner greeted Jack like an old friend, showing them to a corner table with a view of the harbor. I've been coming here for years, Jack explained as they were served wine without having ordered. Best seafood in the city and complete discretion. Brianna relaxed as the evening progressed. Away from the corporate environment, Jack revealed a different side, still guarded but with moments of warmth and even humor. He spoke of his childhood in a working-class neighborhood, his early ambitions, his love of sailing. What about you? He asked as they shared dessert. You mentioned family circumstances that interrupted your education. Brianna swirled her wine glass. My father became ill. Early onset dementia. Medical bills piled up, and someone needed to take care of him. My mother left years ago, so it fell to me. No siblings? A brother? But he's... She hesitated. He has his own problems. Addiction. He disappears for months at a time. Jack studied her. That's a heavy burden to carry alone. Life happens. We adjust. She met his gaze. Like you did. From what you've told me, we just made different adjustments, different paths to survival, he agreed. The moment between them stretched, charged with something neither acknowledged. Finally, Jack glanced at his watch. It's getting late. We should head back. As they waited for his driver, standing close under the awning while rain began to fall, Brianna found herself wondering about the complexities of the man beside her. Criminal, certainly, but also capable of kindness and respect, as he'd shown her from their first meeting. Thank you for dinner, she said. It was nice to see beyond the boardroom version of you. Jack looked down at her, his expression softening. There aren't many people who get to see that version. Why me? The question had been hovering in her mind for weeks. Before he could answer, his phone rang. The screen showed Raymond's name. Jack's demeanor changed instantly as he answered, What is it? His body tensed as he listened. When? How many? Another pause. Lock down the building. No one in or out until I arrive. Double the security on the executive floor. He ended the call, his face grim. What's happened? Brianna asked, alarmed. Change of plans. We're not going back to the hotel tonight. He spotted his car approaching and placed a hand on her lower back, guiding her quickly toward it. Santos made his move early. There was an incident at the casino. What kind of incident? The violent kind. Jack opened the car door for her. I need to handle this situation and I need you somewhere safe. I'm coming with you, she said firmly. Absolutely not. This isn't part of your job description. You hired me to be your assistant. Let me assist. She held his gaze. Besides, if the hotel isn't safe, where exactly do you plan to stash me? Jack looked at her for a long moment, clearly conflicted. Finally, he nodded curtly. Stay close to me. Do exactly as I say. And if things escalate, you leave immediately with Raymond. No arguments. The car sped through the rainy streets, windshield wipers slashing through the downpour. Jack made several calls, his voice tense as he issued instructions. Brianna sat silently beside him, wondering what she had gotten herself into, and why, despite the obvious danger, she felt more alive than she had in years. They arrived not at the casino, but at a nondescript office building on the outskirts of the business district. Jack led her through a service entrance to a private elevator that required both a keycard and fingerprint scan. Welcome to my other headquarters, he said, as the elevator descended. Few people know this place exists. The doors opened to a sophisticated command center. Multiple screens displayed security feeds from Jack's various properties. A dozen people worked at computer stations, while others huddled around a central table examining what appeared to be blueprints. Raymond approached immediately. 3 of Santos's men entered through the service entrance. They took out 2 security guards, non-lethal, but both are hospitalized. They accessed the accounting office and the main vault before our response team intercepted them. "Casualties?" Jack asked. "One of theirs. 2 of ours injured." "What did they take?" "That's the strange part," Raymond said. "They bypassed cash holdings and went straight for the document safe. The only things missing are the Rivera contract drafts and the files on the Macau property." Jack's expression darkened. This wasn't about money. It was about information. He turned to a woman monitoring the security feeds. "Show me the footage." As they reviewed the break-in, Brianna watched Jack's methodical analysis of the situation. This was yet another version of him, the strategist, calculating moves and counter-moves in a dangerous game. "It's a message," he concluded. "Santos is telling me he can reach me anywhere, even in my most secure locations." "What will you do?" Brianna asked quietly. Jack looked at her, and for a brief moment, she saw something unexpected in his eyes, not anger or coldness, but a flash of concern. "First, I ensure your safety. Then I send a message of my own." He led her to a private office off the main room. "You'll stay here tonight. There's a secure apartment through that door with everything you need. And tomorrow?" Jack's face was grim. "Tomorrow I meet with Santos. This ends before it escalates further." She caught his arm as he turned to leave. "Be careful." He looked down at her hand on his sleeve, then back to her face. Something passed between them, an acknowledgement of the shifting boundaries of their relationship. "Always," he replied softly. Then his expression hardened as he returned to the command center, leaving Brianna alone with the realization that she cared far more about Jack Castellano's safety than any rational assistant should. Morning arrived with harsh fluorescent light rather than sunrise. Brianna woke disoriented in the underground apartment, momentarily forgetting the events that had brought her there. The space was luxurious but impersonal, clearly designed for function rather than comfort. She showered and dressed in clothes she found in the closet, perfectly sized for her. It was unsettling to realize Jack had prepared for this contingency, right down to her preferred brands. When she emerged into the main office, she found Raymond waiting, his expression as impassive as ever. "Mr. Castellano left several hours ago," he informed her. "He asked me to give you this." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "Brianna, stay at the safe house today. Raymond will handle anything you need. I've arranged for your father's care facility to be notified of your absence. They think you're on a business trip. Don't worry about your apartment. It's being watched. This will be resolved soon. Trust Raymond. J." No mention of when he'd return, no details about the meeting with Santos, just instructions and that final command. "Trust Raymond." "But where did he go?" she asked, looking up from the note. "I'm not authorized to share that information," Raymond replied. "When will he be back?" "When the situation is resolved." Brianna folded the note carefully. "And if something goes wrong?" Raymond's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Mr. Castellano has contingency plans for every scenario." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I can give you." Raymond checked his watch. "Would you like breakfast? The kitchen is fully stocked." Brianna recognized the deflection but allowed it. "Fine. And while we eat, you can tell me what's permitted in my gilded cage today." The hours passed with excruciating slowness. Brianna reviewed work on her tablet, trying to focus on routine tasks while her mind circled back to Jack and his dangerous meeting. Raymond remained her silent shadow, politely rebuffing her increasingly direct questions. By evening, her patience had evaporated. "This is ridiculous," she said, pacing the office. "I've been stuck underground all day with no information. I'm not some helpless damsel who needs protection." "Mr. Castellano's instructions were clear," Raymond replied, unmoved. "I don't care about his instructions. I care about knowing if he's safe." Raymond studied her for a moment. You've become quite attached to your employer in a short time. Brianna stopped pacing. I respect him, and yes, I'm concerned anyone would be. Not anyone, Raymond countered. Most people in your position would be grateful for the security, especially knowing what's at stake. And what exactly is at stake? She challenged. Since I started working for Jack, I've been kept in this careful bubble where everyone hints at the danger but no one actually tells me anything concrete. Raymond was silent for so long that Brianna thought he wouldn't answer. Then he gestured to the chairs. Sit down, he said, his tone softer than she'd ever heard it. She complied, watching as he took the seat across from her. What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room, he began. Mr. Castellano, Jack, built his empire from nothing. Along the way, he made alliances and enemies. Santos is both. How? They started as partners, expanded together across territories that were traditionally separate, but success breeds ambition. Santos wanted more control. Jack refused to be subordinate. Their split was, volatile. Raymond's careful phrasing didn't disguise the implication of violence. They've maintained an uneasy peace for years through carefully negotiated boundaries, he continued. The Vegas casino resort crossed a line, intentionally or not, depends on who you ask. And the meeting today is to renegotiate those boundaries, Brianna asked. In a manner of speaking. What aren't you telling me? Raymond's gaze was steady. Santos doesn't want negotiation. He wants retribution. The document theft was a warning shot. Today's meeting is more likely an ambush. Brianna felt cold. Then why would Jack go? Because not going would be seen as weakness, and in our world, weakness gets you killed. The stark reality of Jack's life hit her with full force. The luxury and power came with constant danger, a knife's edge he walked every day. Is there any way to contact him? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Raymond shook his head. Radio silence is standard protocol for these situations. Before Brianna could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked the message, his expression changing subtly. What is it? She demanded. Change of plans. We're moving you to a different location. Why? What's happened? Raymond was already on his feet. Security protocol. That's all I can say right now. The urgency in his movements told her more than his words. Something had gone wrong. No, she said firmly. I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's happening with Jack. Raymond paused, conflicted. Finally, he sighed. The meeting location was compromised. There was an incident. Mr. Castellano is returning to the main property. Is he hurt? I don't have those details. Brianna grabbed her bag. Then take me there. Absolutely not. My orders. I don't care about your orders, she interrupted. Jack hired me because I'm not easily intimidated. Remember, either you take me to him or I'll find my own way. They stared at each other, locked in a silent battle of wills. Finally, Raymond nodded curtly. On your head be it, he muttered, leading her to the elevator. The drive to Jack's main hotel was tense. Raymond fielded multiple calls, speaking in clipped sentences that revealed little. Brianna stared out the window at the city lights, her mind creating increasingly grim scenarios. When they arrived, Raymond bypassed the main entrance, taking her through a private elevator that led directly to the penthouse level. Security was heightened everywhere, men with concealed weapons positioned at every corner. Jack's private suite was bustling with activity. Victoria was directing a team of people who appeared to be lawyers, while others worked on computers or spoke in hushed tones on phones. And then she saw him, Jack, standing near the windows, his back to the room as he spoke quietly with an older man in an expensive suit. His posture was rigid, one hand pressed against his side. Wait here, Raymond instructed, crossing to them. Brianna ignored him, following close behind. As they approached, Jack turned. His face was bruised, a cut above his eye freshly stitched, but it was the way he held himself that alarmed her, guarded, protecting his left side. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of her. You were supposed to stay at the safe house. Plans changed, she replied, her gaze taking in his injuries. What happened? Santos brought more men than expected, Raymond answered when Jack didn't. It was a setup. Yet here I am, Jack said grimly, which is more than can be said for Santos. The implication hung in the air. Brianna looked between them, understanding dawning. "You killed him." "He didn't leave much choice," Jack replied, his voice hard. "It was him or me." The older man next to Jack cleared his throat. "Perhaps this conversation should continue in private." Jack nodded. "Everyone out. I need the room." His tone left no room for argument. People filed out quickly. Raymond hesitated, but a look from Jack sent him following the others. When the door closed, leaving them alone, Jack's composure faltered slightly. He moved to a chair, sitting carefully. "You're hurt worse than you're letting on," Brianna said, approaching him. "It's been taken care of." "Let me see." He looked at her for a long moment, then slowly removed his jacket. The white shirt beneath was stained with blood along his side. "The doctor already treated it," he said as she reached toward him. "Bullet grazed my ribs. Painful but not serious." "A bullet," she repeated, the reality of his world crashing down on her. "Jack, this is madness." "This is my life," he corrected her. "The life you've been getting glimpses of for weeks now." She sank into the chair opposite him. "Why did you hire me? Really?" Jack leaned back, wincing slightly at the movement. "Initially, because I saw something in you that night at the restaurant, a resilience that's rare. You stood your ground against that man despite the cost. And later, I realized you were the first person in a very long time who saw me as a man, not just what I represent. Power, wealth, danger. People see those things and never look deeper." His gaze held hers. "You looked deeper." The honesty in his voice stripped away her defenses. "What happens now, with Santos gone? Now I consolidate my position. His organization will fracture without him. Some will fall in line with me, others will flee or fight." He rubbed his temples wearily. "It will be complicated." "And dangerous," she added. "Yes," he admitted. "More so than before, at least for a while." Brianna looked out at the city skyline, processing everything. The world Jack inhabited was so far removed from the life she'd known, a realm of power plays where disagreements ended in bloodshed. "I understand if you want to leave," Jack said quietly. "Your original condition still stands. You can walk away. No consequences." She turned back to him. "Is that what you want?" "What I want," he said carefully, "is selfish. I want you to stay. But what happened today is the reality of my world, Brianna. Violence, danger, difficult choices. I won't pretend it's anything else." "And if I stayed, what would that look like?" Jack held her gaze. "I can offer you wealth, security, a position of significant influence. I can ensure your father receives the best care available, and your brother gets help if he wants it. I can give you a life many would envy." "But not a normal life," she said softly. "No," he agreed. "Not that." Brianna rose and moved to the window, looking out at the glittering city spread below them. The heights were dizzying, the view intoxicating. A metaphor for what Jack offered, elevation and risk in equal measure. "When I was a girl," she said, "my father used to tell me that the most important decisions in life aren't made with the head, but with the heart. He said logic can guide you to safe harbors, but only passion leads to new horizons." She turned to face him. "My safe harbor disappeared when I had to leave school and take care of him. I've been surviving, not living. Then you appeared with your impossible offer, and suddenly there were possibilities again." Jack watched her, something vulnerable in his expression. "And now, after seeing the darker side of those possibilities," Brianna moved toward him, stopping directly in front of his chair. "Now I make my choice with both head and heart. I choose to stay, not because of what you can give me, but because of who I've become since meeting you, someone who isn't afraid to take risks." The tension in Jack's shoulders eased visibly. He reached for her hand, drawing her closer. "There are safer men to risk everything for," he said softly. "Probably," she agreed, a smile touching her lips, "but none quite as interesting." Jack stood, wincing slightly at the movement. His hand came up to cradle her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. "I can't promise safety or simplicity, but I can promise you'll never be bored, and you'll never be alone again." "That's enough," she whispered, leaning into his touch. "That's everything." When his lips met hers, it felt like the inevitable conclusion to a story that had been writing itself since that first night in the restaurant. A dangerous man and a waitress with hidden depths, finding in each other something neither had been looking for. And 6 months later, Brianna stood on the balcony of Jack's villa on the Mediterranean coast, watching the sunset paint the water gold. Behind her, through the open doors, she could hear Jack on the phone, his voice carrying the authoritative tone she now knew so well. Life had changed in ways she could never have imagined. The transition from assistant to partner had raised eyebrows in Jack's organization, but few dared question his choices openly. Those who did quickly learned that Brianna had developed her own kind of authority, quieter than Jack's, but no less effective. Her father now resided in an exclusive care facility where he received the best treatment available. Her brother had accepted Jack's offer of rehabilitation, and though the road was difficult, he was making progress. And Jack himself had changed too. The ruthlessness remained. His world demanded it. But he'd found balance, stepping back from the constant immersion in business to create a life beyond empire building. There had been challenges. The fallout from Santos's death had created waves that took months to settle. Threats had emerged, been dealt with. Brianna had seen sides of Jack's world that still haunted her dreams occasionally, the necessary violence, the calculated risks, the moral compromises. But she'd also seen remarkable loyalty, unexpected kindness, and a man who kept his promises, no matter the cost. Jack appeared beside her, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Beautiful view," he murmured. "Worth the journey," she agreed, leaning into him. "Any regrets?" he asked, the question carrying weight beyond the casual words. Brianna turned in his arms, studying the face that had become her North Star in a world of shifting loyalties and dangerous currents, the face of a man who had built an empire through both ruthlessness and brilliance, who had enemies and allies across continents, who had killed to protect what was his, and who looked at her as though she were the most precious thing he'd ever possessed. "Not one," she said truthfully. "Every choice led me here, even the difficult ones." Jack smiled, the expression transforming his face from formidable to achingly handsome. "Do you remember what you said to me that first night? About walking away if you became morally uncomfortable?" "I remember." "You've seen the worst of my world now, the violence, the power plays, the necessary evils, yet you stayed." Brianna reached up to trace the scar above his eye, a permanent reminder of the day everything had changed. "I stayed because I understood something important. The line between right and wrong isn't always where we think it is. Sometimes protection requires force, sometimes justice requires strength." "A dangerous philosophy," Jack noted. "In the wrong hands," she agreed. "But in yours, in ours, it's about balance, building something that matters while protecting what we love." She smiled up at him. "Besides, you're not the man you were when we met, neither am I." It was true. The waitress who had stood trembling before an angry patron was gone, replaced by a woman who now helped guide an empire with steady hands. And the isolated crime lord had found something he'd never expected, partnership that went beyond business, beyond passion to a deeper understanding. "No," Jack agreed, pulling her closer. "We're better versions of ourselves." Strange how that works. As the last light faded from the sky, they remained on the balcony, suspended between the life they'd built and the endless horizon of possibilities before them. The price of fortune had been high, paid in risk, in difficult choices, in moments of darkness. But the reward was this, a love forged in fire, stronger for the tempering. And as night fell over the Mediterranean, Brianna knew with absolute certainty that no golden sunset or jeweled vista could compare to the richness of the life she'd chosen, complicated, dangerous, and utterly her own. Wow, I told you that ending would be unexpected. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up and share your reactions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Hearts of Crime for more captivating stories, just like this one every single day. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another incredible tale of love in the criminal underworld. Thank you for watching until the end. May God bless you and your family, and I'll see you in the next video.